Do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. Something that all Sri Lankans are now left to do. Just concentrate on the present moment and then think of the future tomorrow. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today revolves around governance and the state of politics in Sri Lanka. We've invited three guests to our studio this evening. Let me quickly introduce them to you. Joining us this evening on the show is Azad Salih, leader of the National Unity Alliance. Also joining us tonight on the show is Kiri Thendakon, Executive Director of the Campaign for a Free and Fair Election. And joining us tonight on the show this evening, representing the Parliament as well as one of the political parties that are blooming in the country, is Chandima Virakodi, who is a parliamentarian, the former Minister of Petroleum of the Good Governance government.
Amir, you must say a group of 15.
Excuse me?
A group of 15.
A group of 15. A group of 15, based on what Mr. Salih is saying. However, let's start off tonight's conversation with Chandima Virakodi, who is a parliamentarian in presently representing the Parliament, of course. Chandima, we hear that there was a discussion between the President Maithripala Sirisena and former President Mahinda Rajapaksa at Minister S.P. Disanayaka's house in Battaramulla. How privy are you to the information that has come about?
Well, the present culture is to hear things from media. So I have also heard it on media, seen it on paper. But of course, there are discussions across the country, wherever we go to, whether we go to a five-star hotel or whether we go to the remotest village. People get together and discuss over a common topic, that is to send this government home.
When you say, Chandima, sending this government home, on what basis do you say this? Send this government home on which basis? What is the basis in which, or what is the selling point, in other words, to send this government home?
Well, as a government should be in a position to understand the pulse of the people. Government has to have a vision. Government has to have a strategy to uplift living standards of the people and the country. Government has to have a vision to protect our integrity. As a government, any government that comes into power should be able to see to it that the people in the country are happy. If you take this government has not been able to deliver up to the expectations of the people in any of those areas.
However, you were also part of this government for nearly 2 years and a few months. What made you all lose faith in the government, and why did you all step out of the government in power?
We joined subsequent to a decision taken by the Central Committee of my party, Sri Lanka Freedom Party, to continue in a unity government for 2 years. We joined the government based on that, and we tried our best to see that what is expected by the people is delivered. Unfortunately, now if you introduce me as the Minister of Petroleum Resources Development of the Good Governance government. Of course, we were not there for the 100 days. As the Minister in charge of Petroleum Resources, I wanted to develop the refinery, which is almost 50 years old. I appointed a committee of petroleum experts and then financial experts. The committee of experts suggested a way forward, and subsequent to that, a high-level committee was appointed by the Prime Minister through his subcommittee on economic affairs. That committee, having had a series of sessions of interaction, approved that proposal. finally, when it was presented back again, with everyone signaling, okay, Prime Minister and the former Minister of Finance didn't give approval. Had that project been taken off the ground, we would have saved a lot of foreign exchange and generated a lot of money. Like I'm telling you, this is this part I have to tell because otherwise people will wonder what I talk about. If you take Singapore doesn't have a drop of oil, but in Singapore they have they have 9 refineries, and even as of now, we import finished oil products. From majority of it is imported from Singapore. So this we couldn't do. This is only one. Had we initiated that, that would have been the highest income generating venture in this country.
So, if I ask you, which party do you represent? Is it the United People's Freedom Alliance, or is it the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, or are you representing the Podujana Peramuna now?
Well, I'm a member of SLFP. I am elected to Parliament as UPFA. Presently, I belong to the joint opposition.
Isn't that a mixed bag itself, Chandama? You're trying to figure out, okay, we elect a member to Parliament from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. He's conveniently saying that he's now representing the UPFA because it's the alliance. And then he's conveniently saying that I'm representing the joint opposition or the Podujana Peramuna. I'm trying to figure out, now, who is Chandama Virakodi?
Well, that's a very good question. Now, to tell you, none of us represent Podujana Peramuna, none of us are members of Podujana Peramuna. But initially, the day the decision was taken by the Central Committee and the All Island Committee of the party to join the unity government. On that particular day itself, it was decided those who would like to join as a part of the unity government are permitted to continue as government, and those of who would like to be in the opposition are permitted to continue in the opposition. So based on that decision taken by the Sri Lanka Freedom Party Central Committee, this situation arose.
I want to move to Azad Sal, leader of the National Unity Alliance, but a very quick question to you again, Chandima. Who is your leader? Maithripala Sirisena?
Well,
Mahinda Rajapaksa? GLP Aris? Or is it Sambandhan who is handling the
no, it's like
opposition
this.
in parliament?
If you take the party per se, president, head of the SLFP is Maithripala Sirisena. And if you take the joint opposition, leader is Mahinda Rajapaksa, under whom we function in the opposition.
Okay.
So it's a...
Wow, that itself...
And who was our former leader as well.
That itself is a mixed bag. We of course will grill you further on this in a bit. I want to move my attention to Azad Sali, leader of the National Unity Alliance. Azad, how was the trip to the United States, New York?
Very good, very good.
Nearly 65 people. Are you not surprised with the numbers that went to New York? With
See, the delegation is a very small delegation, only 5 or 6. But the rest are media person and
which accounted 12.
Yeah.
Then 517. With
Compared
HG,
to the previous regime, you must be happy that at least 63 had gone.
and not more.
Not more. Not a plane full of people.
Quite interestingly, the same question that I posed to Chandima, I'm posing back to you. You were somewhat against President Mahinda Rajapaksa. You wanted good governance. You said there was nepotism in Sri Lanka, there was corruption in the country, and hence there is a need for good governance in Sri Lanka, and hence you supported President Maithripala Sirisena. Even right now where you speak, you represent the Colombo Municipal Council under the Sri Lanka Freedom Party ticket. Now, the discussion that took place in Battaramula.
Let me correct you, Samir. It's the UPFA, which we are a part of,
right, the United
as
People's
an
Freedom
alliance.
Alliance. Broadly, has a more majority of the individuals are from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. I agree with you. But the meeting that took place recently with President Maithripala Sirisena and former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. There were discussions about the position of Prime Minister. There were discussions about the way forward for the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. Now, where does it leave individuals like you in this equation?
Now, Samir, this is, as Chandra said, this is news. It's on media. But the real broker, the so-called broker that they are talking of, SP Disanayaka, he has issued a statement to the media today that there was no meeting at his residence, nor there was a party at his house. He has very clearly stated that this meeting never took place. So what more can we say on this?
So let's say hypothetically that there is a broker, SP Disanayaka is let's say hypothetically, there is a broker, SP Disanayaka, and then there are two parties who, one party you opposed at one point. Are you even happy with the fact that there is a broker to have a joint meeting between these two parties or sections?
See, Samir, I think the group of 16, then which became 15, have been right throughout trying to take the president to the port tour, which has failed. I think for the last 8 to 9 months we have seen this happening and it has been a failure. And even today there was a press conference where they said the port tour, a person who spoke today very categorically stated that we have nothing to do with Maithripala Sirisena, we are not going to sit with him, we are not going to talk to him, we are not going to have anything to do with him. So this is the view of the members there. So I don't seem to see anything that is going to happen in the near future also. Because the concept of Maithripala Sirisena, the policies of Maithripala Sirisena cannot work with Mahinda Rajapaksa or his family.
But at a recent meeting, that is during the SLFP convention a few months ago, President Sirisena very clearly stated that if all members of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party is ready to stand with him, he will formulate a government. He will form a government. And these are his own words.
See, Samir, why did the president make a statement like that? What was the motive of all of us bringing Maithripala Sirisena as a common candidate? We had a motto, as you said earlier, against corruption, against abduction, against killing, against extreme forces working inside Sri Lanka to destroy the unity among the communities. All these things we have seen in the 11 years of the Rajapaksa rule. That was the change that the people wanted. That is why, not only that, the economy was in shambles, the economy was totally gone, and that is why Mahinda Rajapaksa had to leave 2 years prior to his election. He ran away, right? All this was there. But when Maithripala Sirisena came and gave a pledge to the country, if he can't keep to that, he has to find an alternative way. Now, if you will say, all of us said Rajapaksa should go. What was the motive? As I told you, is all the bad dealings that they had. But today what has happened? The good governance government has come and we have all similarities. Earlier we said Mr. 40% Basil Rajapaksa, we have now 45% Mr. Malik Samaravikrama. So nothing has changed, right? The motto of the UNP today is that we will rob 1 rupee more than the Rajapaksas. That is the motto, right? So we have seen this happening every day. There is something. Now see, for instance, now tomorrow there is a cabinet paper coming. For what? Not the school uniform. Huh? School uniform from 400 to 1000 rupees it is going to be increased. And that, as usual, go to any boutique and give the voucher, take the cloth. Now there is another Indian company that has come and the Prime Minister is insisting that Richard and Akila put a joint cabinet paper to buy for emergency use. That is, when a situation like this, calamities come, to give these children school uniform, another 2 or 2.8 billion rupees is going to spend extra for the uniform material which is already in the customs now. That is very inferior quality material that has come. But at the same time, we have 5 factories in Sri Lanka who have come out with their own producing this,
our own.
and they have given samples which has been the best But today, Sri Lankan government is not prepared to buy that.
Thank you very much.
And at the same old price.
Thank you very much, Azhar Salih,
So this
leader
is
of the National
this
Union.
is the good governance government that is there now.
I now move my attention to Kirti Nakoni, Executive Director of the Campaign for the Free and Fair Election. Kirti, now you just heard from Shandim as well as Azad about the way forward for Sri Lanka and the discussions that did take place or that never took place between President Sirisena and former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. However, based on what Shandim said, it was clearly evident that there are discussions going on, and based on what Azad said, there is a broker in place, so whether we know it or not, there may be discussions that are going on. Now, as a civil rights activist, how do you see these developments that are taking place in Sri Lanka at present? Meetings that are taking place between the president and the former president, the prime minister's role now, a lot of corrupt activities are taking place. It seems that people are trying to whitewash those who were corrupt at one point, and now they're coming out to be clean. All this and more, what's happening right now in the country. Where does it put civil rights organizations like you? What is your position on these?
I mean, basically, we are in confusion, like most of these people, what is happening, what is to believe and what is not to believe. When the politicians are coming out and try to make a totally different picture to their public and to their cardholders at the moment. So, I mean, it is not a surprise to us that the present president and the former president, or the real man behind the Pohot tour, Mr. Basil Rajapaksa, is coming together into a table and having a discussion. This is something expected for such a long time now, as especially after the defeat in the local council elections by the UNP, by the SLFP. So new alliances has to be made. So that scenario is nothing new, and everyone knew sooner or later it is going to happen. That's why the SLFP split has taken place, and some people went to Port tour or have tried to merge it for that matter, or the other way around. This is something new, not new. But as Asad said, I mean, why this Yahapalana government, the good governance concept, the Sobita Teros movement, why the civil society movement came into action during the 2012, 2013, very hard times. I mean, that the aspirations, that believeness, that hope has shaken, I mean, during the last 2.5 years at least. So we have some progress at the very beginning, but it is not going to happen, and we are seeing more and more corrupt practices, more and more undemocratic ways of governance is taking place. For example, today midnight, the Central Provincial Council is going to dissolve. This is the 4th council which is going to operate without councillors from tomorrow. 9 out of 4 provincial councils are not now, from tomorrow onwards, operating without the councillors.
And the government.
The government is not doing anything to hold these elections. This is such an undemocratic way of governance. Why we are saying it now? For the eastern, Sabaragamu at North Central, the elections are lagged for almost 12 months now. So by the end of this year, 6 out of 9 provincial councils are going to operate without council.
But Kirti,
9 out of 6.
Yeah,
so
Kirti,
basically what I am saying here, I mean, where is the universal franchise?
No, but Kirti, you're the very person who came here during the President Mahinda Rajapaksa regime and said that elections should not be held sporadically, and this is being held based on the whim and fancy.
No, I mean, the way they manipulate it to their advantage is a different story.
Okay.
Not having election is a totally different story. We never said, we asked to have free and fair elections. There was issues related to the free and fairness of those elections.
Does the government fear an election?
Definitely, yes. This government I mean, all the political parties are feared. I mean, is UNP want election? Is SLFP want election? Is Pohotua want election? Definitely JVP do not want elections, and the TNA, I think they don't, the two don't want election. Is Richard want it? Is Manoganeshan want it? I think what we see here, 225 parliamentarians inside the parliament, none of these political parties, even the candidates who are ready to run for the elections, they don't want elections.
Do you think
it is the election commission and the election
but do you think-
observers and the few the individuals who are talking about this continuously, and no one else, not a single political party.
But do you think, Kirti, that the people want election? Do you think the people are
So,
having
if
minds
the
to go
people
for
do
election
not
now?
want elections, let them talk about it. I mean, here the frustration is everywhere. The frustration is unbelievable. So, let the people talk freely, let the people vote freely, let's have the election first. Then the people will decide, I mean, whether they are happy with the government or not. The people are not given that choice. So, I mean, the politicians can paint their picture as they
Thank you
want.
very much, Keith Tenakon, Executive Director of the Campaign for a Free and Fair Election. We're in conversation with Chandra Virakodi, UPFA Member of Parliament, as leader of the National Unity Alliance, as well as Keith Tenakon, Executive Director of the Campaign for a Free and Fair Election. I open the floor for questions from our journalists. Let's start off with Sonali. Sonali is an attorney at law. Nadeem Majid is working for News First as a freelancer. So let's start off the conversation with Sonali.
Thank you very much. My first question is to Mr. Keith Tenakon. Further to the 19th Amendment, we had the Constitutional Council coming in with a lot of conversation surrounding it. Right now we see it's not fully constituted.
It's paralyzed.
As someone who really campaigned and championed this cause of the new government, new change, where are we looking at now in terms of stability of the public service? Because the Constitutional Council was brought in to maintain independent commissions, depoliticize the public service, but the reality seems to be quite different. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely, yes. As far as I was concerned, I mean, as far as I was collected information up to today evening, only 4 members of the Constitution Council is now operating. The Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister, Leader of the Opposition, and the President's representation is the only 4 people who is holding their positions. So, it is not properly constituted. At least 5 people needed to have a proper legal session of the for the quorum. So, there must be 5 people to have a proper session down there. So we are not having a proper, we are in a position, we are in a situation where we cannot have a proper meeting of the Constitution Council. So what does it mean? I mean, by 13th of this month, the CJ has to be, another new CJ has to be appointed. So where that particular appointment is going to happen. Number 2, the law and order situation of the country. I mean, I was one of the members of the committee to reform the police department, and we were very closely for 2.5 years working with the Police Commission and the Department of Police, Law and Order, and the other ministries. We were heartbroken. None of our recommendations, 18 recommendations, not a single recommendation was done, implemented during the last 9 months. Where are we heading?
Yeah, correct.
And just Chandra, give me 2 seconds. The other issue, now the Commission and the IGP is not working together. The Speaker has to summon them, talk to them, and we see that it is not happening down
Even
there.
after that.
Is this what we are looked for? When we talked about the independent commissions giving deep politicization of the public service and all that, is this what we are looked for?
Chandra, you wanted to add something to
Yeah,
that? Yes.
now, even prior to the dissolution of the Constitutional Council, there was no justice as expected.
Yes.
This government made a mockery of everything. Now, if you look at the composition of the Constitutional Council, who are there?
Ex-officio,
Ex officio, Prime Minister,
Speaker,
Speaker,
Leader of the Opposition.
Leader. They are all on one side. Prime Minister continues as the Prime Minister in this Parliament with the support of the
Opposition.
opposition leaders' party. If they hadn't supported the Prime Minister, he wouldn't have had 113, he got 122, together with the support of the 16, 17 members of TNA. So they're all on one side.
But Mr. Virakodi, he also had the support of your group of 15,
Yeah, wait.
16 and the SLFP group that's in the government.
No, they never supported. We opposed it. We opposed him. But the balance
But
23.
in the no confidence motion
No.
against the Prime Minister, they voted in
No,
support
they
of
didn't
the
vote.
Prime Minister.
We voted against him. But the 23 that
Abstain.
are in the government abstained.
But that's a safe way of saying.
No,
They knew that the TNA
No, they knew. So that,
and
no,
others
but technically,
would support, and therefore
no, but
they would.
technically,
They
don't-
safeguarded themselves.
No, they technically they don't come within the 122
Okay.
who wanted Ranil Wickremesinghe to be the Prime Minister. In Parliament, that's how it happens. The person who commands the highest support, that is the person who could command 122 support, is Ranil Wickremesinghe. So he got 122 together with the support of the TNA. So that is, I mean, technically, he is there, not with the support of the 23 even. He opposed, 23 abstained. And then, you look at the previous composition, 3 of them. And then, Champika Ranaka was there. With UN.
Yazis who died today.
Then Marapana was there. Again, UN.
Marapana.
Marapana was there.
Shibli Aziz.
Shibli Aziz, UNP.
No, Shibli Aziz, those were from the, like,
From
out
the
of the
civil
parliament.
society, yeah.
Just come, the parliamentarians. Marapana was there. Is UNP. And then
JVP.
JVP. One was there. And Johnson Viratna was there. So except for those two, and out of the civil society, Shibli Aziz, my former Attorney General, personally I have a great respect for him, but he functioned as a chairman in the UNP government. So it shows that, and he was working committee one-time working committee member of UNP. And then Radhika Kumaraswamy and ATR. So look at the composition. Majority of the members were UNP.
No, but that puts the situation into a precarious situation. Why?
Yeah.
Because you say that the TNA is supporting Ranil Wickremesinghe, the Prime
Yeah.
Minister. So they have 106 seats. So if the Prime Minister wants to form his own government in Parliament,
Yeah.
he's in a much more stronger position than President Sirisena
Absolutely.
or former President Mahinda
No,
Rajapaksa.
if what Ranil Wickremesinghe should have done would have been to get together with the TNA. Because it's unfair by those who had voted for the TNA. This government survives due to the support of the TNA. But there isn't a single portfolio for the people who are representing those areas and that party.
So where does
Samir,
it leave, where does
the
it-
real issue here,
Yeah.
the aspirations of the people, what the northern people, what the eastern people look from this government. They look for land. Are they getting the land? What
No,
they
no,
are
that-
looking
no,
for?
yeah,
but that aspect is not addressed. The shelter, the healthcare, the
nothing,
roads.
nothing has been
nothing
addressed.
has happened.
They have made
I
a
mean,
mockery of the
is
system.
the reconciliation happening down there? Is
But
new
Chandraman,
jobs?
They
job
have made a
opportunities
mockery of
there?
everything for their survival. That's my.
But Chandraman, the last 6 years following the end of the conflict, since 2009, 2015,
Yeah.
what has President Mahinda Rajapaksa done for the Tamil people of Sri Lanka?
Well, the infrastructure development that had taken place there.
Let's leave that aside. Let's talk about reconciliation and the efforts
Yeah.
taken
First of all, I mean,
to make sure that there was not a recurrence of that sort again. Azad Saleh just mentioned about the incidents that took place down south with the Muslim community as well as the Sinhala Buddhist clergy.
Yeah.
That's
No,
the
there was
reason during the tenure of President Mahinda Rajapaksa. There was no reconciliation. Land was not given to the residents of Jaffna Peninsula prior to 2015. That's a fact.
Yeah, can I?
Yes.
You can't say that the land was not given, but I can't tell you the extent of the land, that was given. But a reasonable extent of land was given to them, given back to them. But there were issues. Certainly, there were pending cases. Even we intervened at parliamentary level. And there were certain areas where there were disputes, and relocating armed forces immediately was not viable. So due to those reasons, certain amounts of land, certain lands that were in dispute had not been released. But the fact, it is very wrong for you to say that land was not released. Considerable number of lands, extent was released. And also,
but you have to admit that during President Maithripala Sirsena's tenure, a lot of effort was taken to give those lands back
certainly,
to its original owners.
During
not only
President Maithripala
Sirsena's, I mean, almost all the lands were being given, and now finally, he has said, before the 31st of December, all lands, even if he has a permit, he must be looked into that, and lands must be released.
Yeah, so
that extent it has gone.
That
government, you had only one man show no. You had only a Gotabaya Rajapaksa who was saying no to everybody. He was not allowing to release any land there.
No,
not in the north, nor in the east.
It is very wrong to, point a finger at one person.
You know it very openly that you all also had no say.
No,
you all went and told the cabinet.
Not that there weren't issues, but don't, you can't, he's a man who delivered development there as well. Immediately after the war ended, after 30 years, what was most important? People had to be given schools. Their health facilities has to be restored. And then they didn't have roads, land mining issues are there. So those were looked into faster than that it was done in any other country. You must give due credit. Now, likewise,
while giving credit to all this, we can also speak about the end of the conflict in 2009. As an individual, I was born in 1985, so as an individual who was born into the war itself and seeing the end of the conflict in 2009, I think was a great victory for Sri Lanka. But let's talk about what happened thereafter. The gunning down of prison inmates at the Balikala prison. Who is responsible?
No, you can, of course, had there been any such incident, law is there, systems are there to look into those. Without, all the time. Now, what has this government been doing?
That is where you all also failed. You all also came into the government. You all never pressurized for these justice to take place.
We as a government, the previous government, if it failed, now like as Azad said, that previous government found it difficult to run it. So then they went in for elections 2 years prior to the date of elections. People must be happy. Okay, that government, they assuming that they felt that they can't run the government, they gave an election and gave an opportunity for people to elect a government that they liked. But presently what is happening? Every effort is to talk about something to discredit the previous government.
And you do the same.
And the few people who had done something. During the last government, there were allegations, so as a result of that we lost. But something was done, something was seen to have been done. But
that's an important point that you say something was seen to be done. Because that ties in with what this government is accusing the previous administration of. All those things that were seen to be done were done at great cost to the country. Plunging the country into debt. So it was seen to be done, but what was seen to be done was actually the cause of the problem now.
One thing we have to admit at any cost here is that we are having a better human rights records at the moment.
No, but
living
That's
peaceful.
credit.
Yeah, living peaceful.
issue.
No,
the
no.
people who face
Now,
it.
let me answer that
The people who feared of our lives. I mean, still I can drive my own vehicle down
Yeah,
there
let me
without fear.
I
after
want to
this.
hear from.
So
I want
that
to- yeah.
freedom
The
was
question-
not
I
ensured
agree.
here.
I agree with you, Kirti.
Yeah,
I want
but
to hear
question
from
is,
Mr. Virikuri.
now, we are Sri Lankans. Is this country a developed country? What do we want? We wanted development. What was the first obstacle for development? The fact that we didn't have peace. Peace was brought about. Then, in order to develop a country, what is number one?
Suppress the minorities.
Development of infrastructure. How do? We can just let it take its own course and slowly develop. Now, other option is to borrow, develop infrastructure, and then let people come into the country and invest. For that, development of infrastructure, that is the second step. Second step was also effectively done during the previous government. Next is to bring about stability, confidence, invite investment. Now what has happened? Now, is there stability in the country? Is there investor confidence in the country? Are investors coming into the country? Now, as a result of infrastructure development, we see an improvement of
So, are you trying to say during President Mahinda Rajapaksa's time, he made an environment conducive for investments to come into the country?
Absolutely. I mean,
2011, I want to take your attention back to the year 2011. Do you remember the Expropriation Act that you said yes to in Parliament?
yeah.
Do you know that 12 companies were taken over by the Mahinda Rajapaksa government just by bringing a bill, and because of that, Sri Lanka lost millions of foreign direct investment in that particular year, and that saw the biggest dip of that particular year in the year 2011. Are you aware of it?
Well, I am aware of it. One such organization is the sugar company,
And the other one is Hilton.
Palwata Sugar Company.
I can give you a lot of examples. The Sri
Yeah, the
Lanka Corporation,
sugar
the
company.
SLECC Exhibition Center.
Lanka Hospital.
Yeah.
Because,
Sugar company, hadn't it been, I mean, that was a daylight robbery of state funds.
let's
Now,
talk about,
had that-
let's keep that aside. That there was a lot of politics involved because
Yeah.
Dayagamge was
So had that been,
parliamentary.
no,
But let's talk about the
so that would have been
the Exhibition
rectified.
Center.
That would have been rectified.
But the SLECC, the Sri Lanka Convention and Exhibition
Yeah.
Center, that was
And
there.
Hilton, of course, we can talk. Yeah.
yeah. No, these.
Now, so is that good? Isn't that arbitrary? Isn't that just using state power to take over because you have a majority in parliament?
So it's state, I mean, first, there are mistakes committed by the previous government as well. That's why people sent us
We
home.
came to rectify.
But at the same time,
We came to rectify.
yeah, this government came
To rectify
and there is
the-
enough time. Did they rectify?
Yeah.
There are certain things.
Now we
There
have
are
come to the
certain things.
real
Real
situation
issue.
of the country. I'll explain it from his point. In 2014 December, if my memory is correct, it's 23rd of December 2014. The present president and the prime minister met the business community in a leading five-star hotel in Colombo, and they said, the moment we come into power, we will totally abolish the expropriation bill, and the owners will give their part of their thing and have a fair hearing into this particular case. Just forget about everything. Just talk about one that enterprise, the Hilton, the Hilton Hotel. Is Hilton given a justice under this government for 3.5 years?
Nothing.
I mean, nothing. I mean, here we are having a dollar crisis. We are having a reserve crisis here. If we can get 500 million US dollars into the country, US dollars, this issue will be solved out.
Not only that, no, they said all properties taken over by the previous government, all lands will be given immediately.
Asad,
Everything.
give me 2 seconds. I mean, here, the negotiated from the central bank with the IMF, continuously for 2 years were saying, now, I mean, any moment we can have 500 million US dollars by selling Lanka Hospital, Hilton, Hyatt, and if it is needed, the Battaramulla water sage premises, right? So, I mean, this was the negotiation. If we having 500 million US dollars at the moment, this rupee crisis won't exit here. And the IMF was ready to give additional 1,500 US
I beg to
dollars.
differ on that, unfortunately.
I think you might need a couple of $billion.
But
Just
I think you might need a few billion
No,
dollars.
that's so this is the way they are robbing it. So that's, yes, definitely, yes.
Yes, Chandra. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Virakodi. On, I saw you shaking your head when Kirti was speaking, so I want to hear from you.
I'm not for a moment in favor of selling anything that this country has.
No, it is not selling.
It is a policy decision.
Handing over Hilton was promised by the president and the prime minister.
If I don't know how they are. I mean, now the cat is coming out of the bag. I mean, to come to power, if whoever had promised to give away whatever that belongs to the country, I don't personally say that the.
Chandra, you speak very passionately about assets and
I don't personally say.
As far as I know,
This is my personal opinion.
The Lanka hospital is not.
Government shouldn't be running hotels, but at the same time, leave aside the hotel. This government is trying to privatize even strategic enterprise, like even the energy sector. We are completely against, because this country has to be there, not for our generation, but for the future generations as well. So it is, I mean, how inefficient they are, in a way, has been beneficial to the country also. If the agreement has been to sell whatever that is owned by the people of this country, then I must say,
I like your patriotism.
blessing.
I like your patriotism, Chandra, because you're an individual who has been elected to parliament, and it's nice to see individuals like you showing patriotism. But I want to again go back to Sri Lankan Airlines. You're talking about state-owned enterprises. One man's egoistic decision to get a flight from London to Colombo.
I'm not for a moment defending such conduct and such individuals.
Right.
I must tell you.
Okay, so we must keep that aside. Let's park that aside.
Now, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa is a man who was loved by the people, who is presently also loved by the people. He is the most popular individual in this country. But his downfall was due to some people around him. So, if you take this government,
Something radically wrong with the Sri Lankan people.
Presently, what has happened is, you can't find hardly anyone who's acceptable to the people. So therefore, now, this one said that there will not be a getting together.
Because the reason being
Maithripala Sirisena and Ranil Wickremesinghe are not two people who had been even in talking terms. Maithripala Sirisena is a person who has been harassed, who was persecuted by the UNP in his political life. But he could get together with Ranil Wickremesinghe to topple the last government. So, as you said, a lot of corruption is taking place. There has to be a getting together of those who love the country, those who will be in a position to deliver for the expectations of people.
Thank you very much, Chandima, as well as Azaz and Kirti. Just revisiting the past, I still recollect the 2010 presidential poll. I still remember those days when Sarath Fonseca, who was a general at that time, came to the media and said, when someone asked him a question about, are you not enemies with the United National Party? He said there are no enemies and no friends in politics. That's what politics is all about. Having said that, Chandima, you would agree with me when I say, right after the 2010 presidential elections, the way in which Sarath Fonseca was prosecuted, the way in which Sarath Fonseca was taken from his residence to the prison, those are not acceptable.
Well, as I told you, such mistakes only penalized previous government. But
so
now,
why are we
but
sliding
now what
back
are we,
to that era?
now,
era
now,
again?
now
Why are
what
we
is
trying to
happening?
slide back to that era again?
Wait, now what is happening?
Yeah.
The people, the soldiers who fought the war, they are being incarcerated.
How so?
I am not in a position to take one by one because
No, how
some of
so?
it is pending in
Because-
courts.
Yeah.
So I am not in a, I will not be taking up what is sub judice. But the fact that, we are here today because of the members of the forces who fought. They sacrificed their life and they did a lot of things during that period. What was done during that particular period must be taken into consideration as special cases. Otherwise, we would not have won this issue of terrorism. And supposing there is an issue tomorrow, do you think our soldiers will be in a position to sacrifice?
Anyway,
They
we
will
now
think
go.
twice. So as a nation, we are failing due to the conduct of this government.
We're now going for a short commercial break. When we come back, yes, very quickly, I'll give you 20 seconds. Yes.
Not only that,
Yeah.
now as Chandima said, none of us are in favor of that. But our position is nobody can utilize their power to do the wrong thing. Now, when the Navy took 13 young boys, I was one of the first people who went to the president and told him, don't do this. He blasted me. Are you trying to go against the forces? I was trying to explain for more than 2 years. And now finally, whatever. It's coming and proving right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your thoughts in the first and second round. I want to mention to our panelists today, you have to take responsibility for the statements that you make on this for sure, because as a network, we won't take any responsibility for the statements that you make. So we're now going for short commercial breaks. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back. The fuel price formula, you want to know how it's calculated? All this and more after short commercial breaks. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation.